thank you so much for joining us again this Friday. We are over the halfway hump and on our way with the end in sight, which is really exciting, I'm sure.
It sure is.
Wonderful. Well, good. Well, just to kick it off, I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we'll turn it over to you for our usual update. We want to thank the City of Clearwater, Clearwater Gas System, Duke Energy, Hill Ward Henderson, Morton Plant, and the Baycare Health System, as well as Charter Spectrum, for supporting our legislative efforts here at Amplify Clearwater. We could not do this without you. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Anita to share our updates. If you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the Q&A chat, and we'll address those at the end. And I just wanted to remind everybody about our upcoming post-legislative breakfast, where our delegation will be joining us for updates on what took place during session, some Q&A, and an outlook into what next year looks like. That will be the morning of March 23rd. Doors will open at 7 a.m. The program will begin at 8 a.m. and it will take place until about 8:45, 9 a.m. So we invite you to join us. That will be held at Ruth Eckerd Hall, and registration is available on our website at amplifyclearwater.com. Looks like Anita dropped off here, so we will give it just one more moment and we'll be right back. All right, well, welcome back, Anita. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. That is quite all right.
My computer just turned itself off.
Well, TGIF, happy Friday. Let's try this again.
Ready for the weekend, apparently.
Yeah.
I apologize. Thank you so much for having me back again this Friday. Like Christina said, we're now officially more than halfway done. We've just wrapped up week 6, so 3 more weeks to go in the legislative session. The big thing this week, and it took up a lot of the time, are both the House and the Senate passed their respective budget proposals off the floor this week. So that'll get us set for the start of budget conference here in the next likely week, if not more. It'll depend on how long it takes on both of the chambers to agree on allocations. We do have a pretty big difference between both the House and the Senate budgets. The House budget is at about $105 billion. The Senate budget is about $3.3 billion higher than that at over $108 billion. So a big gulf to try to sort out between the two chambers. Either way, it is going to be a record budget, higher than any other budget the state of Florida has ever had. Some key differences, just to kind of run through where we are in both of those budget proposals, and y'all have probably heard some of this going on in the news. The most controversial thing would be the education budget and the differences between those. Both budgets do boost per student spending to record levels. However, the House is pushing for $200 million to be taken away from the 12 counties that required masks last year after the governor had issued that executive order preventing them from doing so. This proposal from the House has been endorsed by the governor, and it would reward the other 55 counties that did not require masks. So definitely very controversial right now, a bit political. That proposal is not in the Senate budget. So a lot to come there to see how they sort out that difference. Affordable housing, we do have some differences between the House and the Senate budget. The Senate designates about $337 million towards those programs, while the House only has about $268 million. Still significant funding, but obviously we'd love to see the Sadowski Trust Fund fully utilized for those affordable housing programs. Both the House and Senate proposals are below what the governor had proposed in his budget. Hospitals, we have some differences there. The House has shifted about $252 million in Medicaid reimbursements away from the hospitals. They have argued that the hospitals have record high profits from both the federal COVID funds they've received, as well as the disproportionate payment program, which was implemented by the legislature last session. The Senate does not have those same cuts. Hospital funding is always one of the final things resolved between the House and the Senate budgets. It's pretty typical that we see at least one of the chambers proposing some significant cuts to the hospitals. So definitely, working with the hospitals to fight to make sure that they aren't hurt by this budget proposal. Salary increases for state workers is something else that's of high concern for our state right now. Just like any other industry, they're hurting for workers. Like everyone else. So the House has included an increase that accounts for inflation. It's, I believe, just over 5% increase for state workers, while the Senate is pushing towards a $15 minimum wage for the employees. So we'll see what happens there. But like I said, they're trying to figure out how they get employees just like everybody else is. Cultural and museum grants. This is something that we've seen cut in past years, but the good news is both chambers have those programs funded at our typical levels and have relatively similar proposals for those efforts. The governor had put in his proposal pretty significant amount of reserves for the state. Obviously, we have a lot of federal funding coming in from those stimulus acts that have come down. And so the governor, I believe, has requested $15 billion in reserves for the state. Neither the House or Senate are at that level, but they do put a significant amount into reserves. The House also sets up what they're calling an inflation response fund. It's $2 billion that would help agencies respond to increased prices associated with inflation. That's something that I don't believe is in the Senate budget. But again, both the House and the Senate and the governor are trying to figure out how we make sure that the state is best prepared for emergencies going forward, as well as increased prices that I think we're all seeing in every different agency. Related to the budget, the House rolled out their tax package this past week. That tax package is just over $193 million. The very good news for Amplify Clearwater is that House proposal does not include any changes to the tourist development tax. That is something that we have fought hard against the last several years. The House has tried many different efforts to try to make changes to how those funds can be used. And so the good news is that there are no changes to the TDT in that tax package as it stands right now. Just some quick highlights of what's in it in the proposal. Our tax holidays for back to school and disaster preparedness are back. Those were expanded last year to 10 days, and this proposal would actually expand them to 14 days. The House and the Speaker has said this as well. They're trying to take full advantage of the fact that we do have a lot of extra money coming into the state right now, and so they want to make sure that those savings are passed down to constituents. A new tax holiday on tools for skilled trades like mechanics, carpenters, plumbers, things like that is added. That tax holiday would coincide with Labor Day week. Freedom Week is back. This is a tax holiday that was passed for the first time last year. It includes recreational events and activities. So that's back in the House tax proposal. Good news for affordable housing. The tax package would expand the donation caps for the community contribution tax credit program. That program helps to fund things like our friends at Habitat for Humanity. So that's great to see that the House, despite putting lower money towards affordable housing programs in the budget, is trying to put some efforts towards improving affordable housing across the state. The governor has already taken some action on bills so far this session. The governor's emergency management fund was signed into law by the governor yesterday. That grants him $500 million to be used at his discretion during times of emergency, so he wouldn't have to go to the legislature to be able to utilize those funds. It just gives him a little bit more flexibility to be able to respond to emergencies and help our communities in those times of need. So that was signed into law by the governor just yesterday. The House and Senate did send the governor yesterday evening the healthcare COVID-19 liability extension that Amplify supports. So that was sent to the governor yesterday for signature. Because we're in session, the governor will only have 7 days to act on that bill, which means he can either sign or veto it. If he does not act on it, it automatically goes into law. We do anticipate that the governor will sign that, so we'll make sure to let Amplify know as soon as that happens. We've had a lot of discussion this session about local ordinances. There's several different legislations floating around out there that are kind of being called the preemptions to end preemption. The legislature has seen a lot of different items come forward these last several years with businesses asking the state to preempt local governments from being able to regulate, various different items. So a bill that has already passed the Senate floor moved in the House this week. This one's a little bit interesting because it's backed by business groups, including the Florida Chamber, AIF, FRLA, but it's also supported by the Florida Association of Counties. They feel that it's a fair response. And so that I believe they are, supportive of what the legislature is trying to do here. This bill would require local governments to prepare a business impact estimate before adopting local ordinances. I think a lot of the municipalities are saying, they already try to do these things. They try to hear from stakeholders and take feedback before they put local ordinances into place. So they feel like that's a fair thing to be required. It would allow, though, for the court to award attorney's fees, costs, and damages to a complainant that successfully challenges a local ordinance on the grounds that the ordinance is arbitrary or unreasonable. It does cap those attorney fees that are awardable. But it would create some exceptions that would allow the local government to go back and cure the issue. So that gives them a little bit of flexibility to respond to those lawsuits, which puts our municipalities at ease for sure, but also make sure that we're protecting our businesses and making sure that there aren't unreasonable regulations being put into place that are gonna impact them. Regulation of smoking on public beaches and parks. This is an issue that's currently preempted by the state right now. The state is the only entity able to control any type of regulation over smoking and tobacco. This bill, though, would allow our local governments to regulate smoking on public beaches and parks. It's ready for the floor in both chambers. However, just this last week, we saw a couple of differences come out between the Senate bill and the House bill. The Senate bill now exempts cigars from that regulation. I do think that this could change. That was a request by one of the committee chairs that the bill had to go through. So my understanding is it was done to get that through that committee. So that could change, that it would include cigars going forward. We'll see what happens. The House, though, just yesterday expanded their bill to allow local governments to restrict smoking or vaping within 25 feet of a public entrance or exit to a business. This is something new. We have not seen this before. It does expand the bill quite a lot. My understanding is that the Senate sponsor is not particularly interested in this provision. So a lot of differences now to work out between both of those bills. But the furthest that the bills have moved in either chamber, like I said, they're both ready for the floor. They previously have not moved very far in past sessions. One issue just to put on the radar of Amplify, I don't think it's going to move any further this session, but there is legislation in both the House and Senate that would prohibit the sale of certain non-transferable tickets. So if we have any attractions within Clearwater that don't allow purchasers of tickets to be able to transfer that to another person, this would impact you. It has now moved through the one committee in both the House and the Senate. And like I said, I don't think it's going to move much further, but it is something to definitely, keep an eye on, and that Amplify might want to consider engaging on. Senator Hooper is the Senate sponsor. And I think he's, definitely trying to learn what kind of impact this could have. So perhaps something to kind of talk with him going forward over the summer, but a new issue that we've seen this session. Local tax referenda requirements, again, always trying to make sure that nothing's going to impact our tourist development taxes. This bill is very narrowly tailored to just require those referendums to be conducted during a general election. So that bill is now ready for the House floor, and has one committee left in the Senate. And then finally, just to touch on redistricting, since we are in a redistricting year, congressional redistricting is still up in the air. The Supreme Court has said that they won't weigh in on the constitutionality of the governor's proposal. So the House and Senate are now going back to reconsider their maps that they had put forward. They are a little bit worried that if they were to move forward with them, the governor would veto those maps. And they certainly don't want to end up in some type of a special session on congressional redistricting. So a bit of compromise likely to come forward there. And of course, we're watching that to see what's going to happen to the congressional districts here in Pinellas County. So another very quick rundown of everything going on in Tallahassee. Like I said, we have 3 more weeks left. Budget conference likely starting at the very earliest sometime late next week. And so we'll be continuing to make sure that Amplify and its members are top of mind with our delegation and our legislators and protected in any legislation moving forward.
There we go. Just turn that camera back on. Thank you so much, Anita, for that very thorough update. There's some interesting new ones. I'll definitely have to talk with Hooper just to understand the intention of that bill. And to your point, his impact. Hopefully we'll have some time to do so over the summer. Well, I don't see any questions at this time, but I just want to thank you again for your updates. We want to thank our sponsors, the City of Clearwater, Clearwater Gas System, Duke Energy, Hillward Henderson, Morton Plant Hospital, and the Baycare Health System, and Charter Spectrum. As I shared with you at the beginning, I wanted to make sure everyone has it on their radar for our post-legislative breakfast. March 23rd, doors will open at 7 a.m. The program will begin by 8, and we'll have you out of there by 9. But we encourage you to come to hear updates from the local delegation about everything that took place during session this year and kind of the outlook for what is to come next year. Thank you, as always, Anita, for your representation of Amplify and its priorities in Tallahassee. We appreciate you, and we'll see you again this time next Friday.